the results that come from Maricopa County. Chairman Gates is going to start us off today, followed by Recorder Richer, and we also have Sheriff Paul Penzone, welcome to him, here to talk about the security efforts, not only around McTech, but around the county as it relates to elections. And after that, we're going to get to your questions. Scott Jarrett and Ray Valenzuela also here today to, if you have a technical question, something about process, we're happy to have them answer a question as well. So a few things, a lot of people here have not been here before, so I'll just kind of line out some rules for you real quickly. Jessie, who's here in the very bright red dress, or is it orange? I'm not sure. So she has got a microphone, and we're streaming this to YouTube, so we want people that are watching on YouTube to be able to hear your question. So please let us wait for the microphone, let us know who you are and what organization you represent, and then ask your question. We're going to do best to get to everyone. Obviously, we have a lot of people here today. As I said, if you have a data question, something we have to research, we'll get back to you by phone call or email. We're happy to do that. Selena Olivas is here as well. If you work for a Spanish language television station or a print publication, we're happy to answer questions in Spanish after as well. With that, I'd like to introduce Chairman Bill Gates.
Thank you, Fields. Appreciate it. Great to have so many members of the county team here. As Fields mentioned, our colleague, our partner in running elections, of course, Recorder Richer, and as well our partner in many things at Maricopa County, Paul Penzone. Thrilled to have the sheriff with us. We also have the Maricopa County assessor here, Eddie Cook, as well as one of my colleagues from the Board of Supervisors, Tom Galvin. So again, want to thank everyone for being here. And as Fields mentioned, we've spent really the greater part of 2 years dealing with misinformation, responding to misinformation here at Maricopa County. And we're going to continue to do that. That's one of the reasons that we started doing these press conferences a few weeks ago. And we're seeing it taking place. And today we really want to put a fine point on it, actually by dealing with some specific examples and responding to them. Just at the end of last week, this misinformation effort really kicked into high gear as people who have large followings on Twitter or other social media platforms started to spread misinformation about this upcoming election, which of course is tomorrow. And here's one of the sad things is that we're here in Maricopa County. We've got residents of Maricopa County that are trying to do the right thing and understand what the truth is. And a lot of this misinformation is being spread by people who don't even live here in Maricopa County. But for one reason or another, they want to distract and they want to create issues with our election. One of the biggest issues has been the time that it takes to count the ballots. Again, I mean, I've even seen it today on Twitter where you have people that are talking about, why don't we have results by election night? The Recorder and I have been talking now about this for weeks, providing information why under Arizona law, we're not going to have final results on election night. The problem is that people out on social media and elsewhere will take the fact that we don't have final results on election night or early the next day as somehow proof of fraud or allowing that people can start, rigging the election or something like that. And that's simply not the case. The reason that it takes several days to have all of the votes counted here is due in part to the mail-in voting that we have. We know that thousands of people will choose tomorrow to drop off their early ballots. They have every right to do that. But under Arizona law, we won't start to even process those ballots and process those envelopes until the next day. So that's Wednesday. And as you all have heard, we have an extensive signature verification process that's handled by the Recorder's office. That takes time. We want to get it right. We don't want to do it fast. We want to do it right. So that process, as they go through and they're comparing the signatures on the outside of the affidavit envelopes to the signatures that are in the records for voter registration, it takes time. They have expertise. They want to get it right. So that means that we will most likely, we're not going to know in some of these races. We may not know who the winners are on election night. We may not know for several days. What we're telling people is that we anticipate somewhere between 95 and 99% of the votes will be counted by Friday of election night. Now people say, why didn't we know about this before? well, we think one of the, we've done this for years. This is how Arizona law works. But we didn't have this much attention on our elections. And also, our elections haven't been as close historically as they've been recently. And, I don't believe in polls. I'm not a poll watcher. But if you were, you would see that many of these polls are anticipating very close races. So again, that's why it may be several days until we're in a position. Additionally, there are literally state laws in place that give people days to correct, like their identification. If they don't have identification with them, they have days to respond, to get back to us with the IDs. So again, under Arizona law, it's going to take a few days. But unfortunately, again, we're going to continue to hear this kind of noise and maybe other noise about fake issues. So our request to the media is, please, when there's information like this going around tomorrow, please wait, get it verified before you amplify this sort of information out there. It makes it extremely difficult for these professionals who run this election to deal with it when that sort of unverified information is out there being amplified. So with that, I'd like to just take you through about three. These are scenarios with sort of fake news. Sorry, I said it, and how we would respond to those, and then I think you'll have a chance to hear from the recorder. So the first false narrative is kind of what I've talked about here already, but not having every ballot counted on election night indicates some sort of cheating or incompetence as well. And so here you go. You see this one. Pro tip: if your state cannot count every vote on election night, there's cheating in your state. Entire nations count their votes on election day. If you can't, it's because you don't want to. So again, that's just plain wrong, as we have described. This 100% counted ballots has taken a long time. It's taken several days for many years. We've been doing early voting here in Arizona since the early 90s. And I know about this very well from personal experience because I served as an election lawyer for the Arizona Republican Party in the mid-2000s. And we were frustrated by this. I understood it, but that's how it worked. It's part of Arizona law. It is in no way an indication of incompetence or fraud. And again, we've been very clear in these press conferences already what the plan is on reporting numbers. So our first report of numbers tomorrow night will be at 8 p.m. That's going to be all of these ballots that Recorder Richer and his team that they've gone through. They've signature verified these through this weekend, okay? And those that have been tabulated. That's going to be a big number. And then later on at 9 p.m., we may have additional ballots that have come in since the weekend. From that point on, we'll be providing vote totals from day of. So these are people who show up tomorrow, who vote in person, put their ballots in the tabulator, and we'll be reporting those votes throughout the night and into the early morning. So that's what's going to happen. Don't be surprised when that happens, and don't listen to the folks who tell you that that is flawed in some way. Okay, fake narrative, false narrative number 2. All right, so this is that the machines don't count the votes accurately. And I think we've got do we have a tweet on that one? Yeah, we have another one. If they're using the Dominion tabulation machines, they could still cheat. They could change the algorithm. They could also switch votes using the adjudication program. So again, the accuracy of these machines is tested before the election. It's done by Maricopa County. It's done by the Secretary of State's office. That's already occurred to make sure that there isn't any tampering. If those machines don't pass those tests, we can't use those machines. Additionally, there's a hand count that we do, a hand count that tests a statistically significant, easy for me to say, batch of those votes, hand count, and that is conducted by party members, Republican Party members, Democrat Party members. And once we've gone through that statistically significant number of ballots, if we find that that is consistent with the results from the machines, then we're done. If we find discrepancies, then we will expand that hand count. So that is another thing that supports what we're finding from those machines. And by the way, the hand count audit matched the machine counts both in the 2020 election and also in the primary here in 2022. Additionally, the courts have affirmed the count of these machines over and over again in lawsuits. And finally, in the Lake v. Hobbs lawsuit that was brought earlier this year and was heard in the federal district court, the court in that case actually said that there was such a lack of a basis for this claim that the machines could be manipulated that the judge threw the case out. And then the final false election narrative here is that election workers are going to change my vote. So again, if the tabulation machine cannot read a contest for some reason, that contest then is reviewed by a bipartisan team. So Republicans and Democrats are reviewing this. And the bipartisan team has to agree before any action is taken. And also what's very important is that throughout that process, every action that is taken, it is audited. There's an audit trail that people can look to and supports the decision that was being made. And let me be very clear about this one. There's no AI used in this process at all, despite what you may have heard. There are only humans that are used to review these contests. The best advice that we can give voters on this particular point is make sure that you're very careful about how you fill out that ballot. Make sure that you're using fast-drying pens. We don't want pens that are smudging the process. And if we do that, then the tabulators will be able to read your ballot. So again, thank you for your time here. Thanks for your attention to this important issue. And with that, I'll turn it back to Fields Mosley.
Thank you very much, Chairman Gates. And save your questions, please, for the end if you have any questions on this subject. Recorder Richer has a number of issues to cover as well, and including some other false narratives that he's seen.
Great. Hello, everyone. Again, Stephen Richer, Maricopa County Recorder. Thank you for being here. What is this, number 5? 5? 4? 5? 5? Well, thanks for being back. Some of this is doom and gloom, so I want to start the day on a happier note. I went to 15 different voting locations today, and people were happy. The workers were happy, the voters were happy, and so I hope that we can take a sense of sort of the magnitude and the beauty of the situation as well while we're talking about misinformation, disinformation, security practices, and all of that. Just that Arizona and really Maricopa County is at the center of the universe in terms of the democracy, the democratic process that makes this country so beautiful. And so I'm very proud of what we have done as a team, and I'm very proud that there were a lot of people out there voting today, and I'm very proud of the close to 3,000 workers that are part of the Maricopa County family in administering this election. Additionally, some numbers. As of 11:30 this morning, we had received back 974,760 early voting packets. And as of this morning as well, we had signature verified and scanned in and barcode scanned and made sure that it came from a valid voter of 965,000 of those. So those will be part of the number of ballots that are available to release at 8 p.m. on Election Day. As of 1 p.m., we had already had 6,000 in-person voters, early voters today, so that was exciting. That's a big day, and it will continue to grow. Regarding communications, as mentioned, we have done everything within our power to make sure that we are communicating to voters and making sure that we are answering voters' questions. Last week, we received 3,102 emails to our voter info inbox. We have continued our pace of responding on average within 30 minutes if sent during the business day. 25% of those relate to early voting, 16% relate to voter registration, 16% relate to election day, 11% relate to ballot status. That takes us to approximately 39,000 emails that we have received to our general voter info inbox during the course of this election. Last week, we received 8,734 election calls to our election call center. That brings us to over 40,000 calls to the election call center for the course of the election. The average speed to answer last week was 32 seconds, and the percentage of questions within 30 seconds that were answered was 84%. And for anyone who has been in the call center business before, those are very excellent numbers that we are proud of. Now, a few reminders. If you have an early ballot, please do not mail it back via USPS today. It will not get to us by 7 p.m. on election night. And in fact, that's one of the things that actually assists in our tabulation process, because Arizona is not like many of our western neighbors where we are a receipt state, meaning it must be in our possession by 7 p.m. on election night. So if you still have an early ballot and it's in that green affidavit envelope, please take it to one of the voting locations or to one of our drop boxes. Some of our western neighbors, including Utah, make it such that it is a postmarked date, so that you just have to have mailed it by a certain date, and they might not even get it until 3 or 4 days after the election. But if we get it 3 days after the election, then we're not able to move it forward, and we don't want that to happen. All right, we're going to go to topics that need to be addressed in terms of misdis and malinformation. So let's see, number 1. All right. The fact that they stopped counting in Maricopa County is concerning, to say the least. Hopefully lots of pairs of eyes will be on them. So lots of pairs of eyes are on us, and it's really wonderful. And if you come down to Maricopa County's tabulation center, you would see that at no point are we tabulating without the participation of the political parties. So the political parties actually have a role in this. We cannot even begin to start tabulating if they are not looking at the readout on the individual tabulator, making sure that it's exactly what it was when they last left off. Additionally, as Bill mentioned last week, when our internet went down on the external circuit for, I think it was something like 15 minutes, and we weren't able to live stream our tabulation room, we immediately stopped tabulating, because we do not tabulate unless we are live streaming the process. So there is no mysterious tabulation that happens in the middle of the night. Now, that doesn't mean that we aren't working. We are working. I promise you all we will be working from Tuesday night up until Wednesday morning. What will we be doing? Well, in the primary, we received back 122 early ballots that were returned on election day, 122,000, excuse me. And what we did is at the end of the night, we collect those, we bring those in, we barcode scan them. Again, that loads a vote to the voter registration profile, make sure that the person hasn't voted twice, and then we begin scanning those. We begin capturing images of all 122,000 of those, because then we take that image of the signature, we load it into our database, and that's what allows our team to begin the signature verification process. So while we are working through the night, we will be tabulating late some days, but we will not be tabulating without the participation of the political parties. All right, number 2. Illegitimate voters cast a ballot. Bombshell report. It's always a strong start. Nearly 1/3 of votes cast in Maricopa County not counted. Another 14% were phantom votes. So as we've discussed a few times in this forum, you cannot vote, and there cannot be a vote associated with a non-voter registration profile. Put more articulately, you have to register to vote in order to have a vote associated with it. There is no such thing as simply injecting ballots into the system. You would first have to create fake voter registration profiles, and to do that, you would have to fool the Social Security Administration, you'd have to get a Social Security ID, you'd have to fool the Motor Vehicle Division. So there are only votes for registered voters, and there will never be more votes than there are registered voters. And it would be very surprising if we got above, say, 80%, which is not what we figure. Next one. Look at this thing I heard, read, saw. Isn't that suspicious? Fraud alert. What the heck? Family member just now received a voter ID card from Maricopa County, even though he's voted in every election from Coconino County since 2016. This is the first time he's received something like this from Maricopa County since 2016. So we will never be, this was pretty unintelligible, so it took me a little while to even sort of work my way through this. Well, once I did, we will never be immediately dismissive of anything that a voter says. So that's one of our challenges in combating mis and disinformation, is we're always going to be responsible, and we're not going to respond until we understand what the situation is. I think on the next slide, of course, that didn't stop people from immediately sharing this. Let's see. Maricopa County is a mess under the leadership of Stephen Richer, yada, yada, yada. So this immediately snowballs into something else. And so we're still trying to figure out, well, what is even being discussed? Well, this particular voter I was put in contact with, and I believe I have the email here. Okay, so I responded with the email, and I said, So why did we send this person a new voter ID card if this person had supposedly voted in Coconino County? And as I said, I looked up this person's voter profile and I pulled up and it says, on October 10th, 2022, we received the below voter registration from Service Arizona. If you believe that somebody fraudulently filled out your correct email address, correct social security number, correct middle name, correct telephone number, correct driver's license number, correct birth date, and address, and fraudulently signed for you, then please let me know and I will immediately report it to law enforcement. This person has not responded to that email. So there is often another explanation for these types of situations, but because we are trying to be as responsible as possible, we will not publicly broadcast that until we have looked into it. Now, unfortunately, this is a situation in which we were pretty easily able to resolve by simply pulling up the voter registration profile and looking at that information. Now, no apology was corrected, and unfortunately, that's the nature, is that the mis and disinformation is still out there, but it was something that we were able to figure out, at least on our end, and for anyone who wishes to know. Another one was regarding something that Chairwoman Ward had said during the primary, which is that you mailed a ballot to my daughter's address in Mojave County, even though she lives here in Maricopa County. And so we pulled up, again, we don't respond immediately. We're human. Mistakes can happen on occasion. They're very rare, but they can happen. So we pulled up the voter registration profile, and this person, her daughter had given us a mailing address of, where? Mojave County. And so we did exactly as the voter had requested. But by that time, the mis and disinformation has already spread and has already become something that is a little bit hard to put back into the bottle. But that being said, we do look at every single one of these, and we do our best to both pre-bunk and debunk. And it is the goal of the county, after having done this for 2 years, that because of the positive information that we have put out and because of our continued insistence upon addressing these claims and finding that not one has been accurate, that people will have confidence in this process, but we'll continue to do that. So thanks very much.
You all absorbed that, right? There's a lot thrown at you at once. So thank you very much, Recorder Richer. Mis, dis, and malinformation, of course, it can lead to security worries, concerns, potentially threats, and that's where Sheriff Paul Penzone comes in.
There's a part of me that wishes that Stephen was my algebra teacher for some reason. With that being said, I don't have any slides, I don't have any jokes, and at this point I don't have any patience. I've been in this business for over 3 decades, and I never thought in my life that we would be putting up physical barriers, fence lines, barbed wire, having deputies to the volume of what we've committed, having technology, having every resource readily available to law enforcement to protect a building where the most important thing that goes on in our nation, the free vote, takes place. If you told me we were doing it to protect a school or a church or a synagogue or something of that nature, I'd understand it. But we are who we see in the mirror right now, and that is a result of, as you heard many times, misinformation, creating emotion that leads to frustration and causes people to behave in ways that is unacceptable. So, as committed as we are to keep the community safe, we're committed to protect the free vote in a republic. Anybody out there whose intentions are to undermine this effort, to create fear, to intimidate good men and women who are trying to facilitate this process, you will have to go through us to get there, and it's not going to happen on our watch. A few of my chiefs are here today, and I couldn't be more proud of the work they put in to prepare a very comprehensive plan. We will be zero tolerance, so you can go and cast your vote and put your sticker on your shirt and feel good about the fact that you live in a free nation, or you can find your way down to the recorder's office and come in confrontation with the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, who are going to protect everyone and every vote in that building. I'm not saying that to sound like a tough guy, although my wife says I picked the right profession because I have a mean face. I'd like to think it's a serious face, because this is a serious issue. So here is the cup half full. Make it a special day. Show the nation that Arizona can rise above it all at the times when people are looking for us to fail. Celebrate that we're going to choose a new governor, a new secretary of state, a new attorney general, and a whole list of new leaders in our community. Because that's what makes this state a special one, and now suddenly we're more relevant across the nation. You can be that person, and hopefully that's who you'll choose to be. But if not, then we'll take care of the business as we always have. So here's my my thoughtful PSA if you choose to come out there and break the law. I have plenty of cells for you. We will serve you 2 meals during the day. Neither one of them taste all that good. It can get really expensive for your pocket. There's a better option. So you will see a lot going on at the recorder's office. We've taken great efforts to prepare it for success. I hope you will work with us, because a lot of folks say that they believe in, they support, and they love the fact that not only the institution of voting in this nation is so important, but the institution of law enforcement does such an exceptional job of caring for people. We want to be focused on we want to be focused on protecting our children, protecting our schools and our churches and our synagogues, but for the time being, we'll be protecting the recorder's office. I don't know that I have much else for you. I will say this, though, to some of my colleagues who are either in leadership or pursuing it, your words matter. And if you choose words that invoke violence, you will be listed on the criminal reports also. We take this very serious. We work with the prosecutor's office to determine if something crosses the threshold to be a crime, and don't think that your words alone cannot get you in trouble, because they can. So with that, I say thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheriff Penzone. So we'll take some questions now. Jesse has the microphone, so let's start with Sasha, then we'll go to Jeremy. I guess we'll start with Scott first on the questions of the length of the ballot and how much time it might take to get people through the locations.
Thanks, Sasha. So we will have 223 voting locations open on Election Day. In addition, we'll have 12 standalone drop boxes. So this is a 27% increase over 2020, so where we had 175 voting locations. We've also increased the number of check-in stations up over 400 over what we had in 2020 to 1,900 check-in stations. We have over 5,000 voting booths that will be in our voting locations. We've increased the number of printers that will be in all of our voting locations to try to expedite and decrease the number of bottlenecks. So it is a long ballot in Maricopa County. On average, there's over 80 contests. So our analysis is the average voter will take anywhere from about 11 to 13 minutes to be able to complete that. Now, there will be lines on Election Day. That is normal. But because we're offering 223 voting locations, and we post our wait times every 15 minutes on our website, voters can go find a short wait time for them. There will be some locations that have very minimal wait times, similar to what we had in 2020. At the end of the night, we had some locations approach about an hour-long wait time, but less than 2 miles away, there's locations that had 1 or 2 minutes. So I encourage voters to go to locations.maricopa.vote, find a convenient location for them, whether that's close to where they work, where they live, or find the shortest wait time for them.
And Sheriff, do you want to take the other question? I believe the question was how will we enforce these boundaries, these barriers, if people choose to break those?
And also, do you expect that people are going to follow the law, or rather follow the federal court order that's going to happen now?
Gosh, I don't know. I would just say that I have a great appreciation for the fact that oftentimes we're reactionary to try to ensure that we're protecting people, and the courts take steps no different than other injunctions because they deem it to be necessary due to the circumstances. Our job is to enforce the law and to protect people's rights. Everyone else's job is to just be decent to each other. The fact that we have to go to the courts to get an order to say don't harass somebody when they're about to vote, as I said earlier, we have to look in the mirror and say, how did we get here? Because it shouldn't be necessary. I said this once before and I'll say it again. Just because it's legal doesn't make it right. be decent to each other, show respect in the same manner that you would like you or your family members to be respected. And I hope nothing more than I have so far over prepared for this next week, and it was underwhelming that we can call it a waste of resources. But I sure am not going to be on the other side of the ledger, so I call on people to just be better people. Thank you.
So, Jeremy Duda.
Alleged review of 21,000 ballots and say that were properly cast, and I know the details are difficult to kind of follow the details of all these different rounds of allegations, but I feel like the county is avoiding those and have had a response.
And you're talking about the video of some presentation that was made somewhere end of last week. I believe Recorder Richard can probably answer. I'm not aware of any accusations or anything, but maybe you are from your office's point of view.
We monitor this stuff. We're certainly aware when people make allegations regarding the accuracy, the security of the voting process. We wholeheartedly refute those claims. Those claims have been refuted time after time. We can go back even to just days after the 2020 election, in which the case of Ward v. Jackson, the Superior Court looked at the signature review process, and it had plaintiffs' handwriting experts and had defendants' handwriting experts, and they both agreed that there was no sign of forgery or any sort of inaccuracy in the sample size that they looked at. Additionally, we've done some tests on our own. Additionally, the Cyber Ninjas reviewed this process, and they sent that forward to Mark Brnovich, and he recently said that all of these claims were nonsense, except for in more colorful terms. And so we suspect that when we get around to looking at these, we will find the same results as we've found each and every single time. Our priority, though, right now is on making sure that we have a very successful November 2022 election. So that's where our focus is going to be. And also, we were under the assumption that that report was done in September 2021, and so sort of why now? I don't think that's doing anyone any favors. I don't think that's healthy for the system. They put out a report that we believe was inaccurate, misleading, unaware of election law in September 2021. We responded in 93 pages in January of 2022, and they have not offered any formal word since then. And like I said, all we've had since then is that the Attorney General looked at those claims and found that they were all nonsense. The first question, I don't remember what it was, but I think that might have been for someone else anyways today.
Whether the people watching the drop boxes have been adhering to...
Have you had any reports?
Well, so we've received additional reports regarding voters feeling intimidated or voters alleging some sort of misbehavior. We forward those to law enforcement immediately, but we have not heard about this particular group.
Who else has a question? Start with CNN, then go over to Nicole from or either way, you guys can wrestle for it.
Okay, can you guys hear me? This will be probably for the sheriff and Recorder Richard. So what are you expecting tomorrow as far as security? Obviously, you don't have enough deputies to place everywhere, so are you going to have them outside of polls? Are they going to be driving past? What should voters expect tomorrow? Will you be out in full force, or is it just around the election tabulation center where, you know, security gates are there? We now see the barricades outside along the sidewalks. Is that preparing for protests tomorrow?
Sure. Now, our plan has included everything. You know, there's no aspect, if someone can show a vulnerability and take advantage by undermining this vote in any capacity, then it ends up undermining the vote in complete capacity. So we will have deputies that will be out, as I discussed before, in plain clothes, keeping an eye on polling sites, because we don't want voters to feel uncomfortable if they see a military-esque, a law enforcement presence. But if there is a need for us to deploy some uniformed deputies, then we will. We will cover as much ground. We've kind of sectored out the county to make sure that however many deputies we assign to a certain region, that they can respond. And let's not forget, there's a lot of law enforcement agencies in Maricopa County, and they're all our partner in this effort. They've been exceptional. The Department of Public Safety, Phoenix PD, Tempe, Scottsdale have all assisted us in a lot of our efforts, but we have a lot of other agencies that will help cover that ground. There's different elements, and normally I wouldn't tip my hand, but I will tell you now, you know, transporting the ballots. we will be conducting surveillance for when we're moving ballots from point A to point B to get to the recorder's office to make sure it's done safely on site. Once 7 o'clock rolls around, you'll see signage go up around the recorder's office that says it is no longer a public access facility, that it will be secured and closed after 7 o'clock when the polls close. And aside from a very few exceptions, the signage is intended to educate people who show up there that if you go on the property, you'll be arrested for trespassing. So all those resources that will initially be outward will come internal, and they will make their space around the recorder's office, where we plan on spending as long as we have to until the vote is counted, the election is decided, and the community embraces that outcome. Did that answer your question? Did I cover all of it?
I mean, are you expecting protesters armed outside the tabulation center?
We're just going to prepare for any and all circumstances, in hopes that all we see tomorrow are happy people, like Recorder Richard, that kind of, hop in their step and they go about their business and life is good. But should it turn the other direction, we're prepared to deal with it, and we feel confident in the volume. You mentioned a shortage of deputies. Yeah, it doesn't make me happy that we're taking them from other areas of need to place them here, but this is the absolute unequivocal priority for the time being, and all necessary resources will be dedicated to ensure the safety of the facility and the people therein.
Thank you. And then my second question, I guess, is for Recorder Richard. The Justice Department is to monitor polls. They say that they're going to be around Maricopa County. What's your conversations with them? Will they be visible to the average voter? What have you asked them to do, or what have they told you they will be doing? Whoever is best to answer that.
So I'm Scott Jarrett, co-elections director for Maricopa County. So it's not unusual for the Department of Justice to send out observers to voting locations. They'll be in several different counties in the state of Arizona. We've had conversations. There'll be several of them just going out to make sure that our voting operations are smooth, that we're not violating any voters' rights as they're participating in the process. The other thing that I did want to mention too is we are a community, right? We rely on our poll workers to be able to serve the Maricopa County voters. They're our family, our friends, our neighbors that are all working the polls. And we've been preparing for this for over 2 years and providing significant training to our poll workers so they can de-escalate situations in those voting locations. But then we have a very robust command center within the elections department to be able to respond to issues that may occur out at our voting locations. So the first line of defense is those poll workers themselves being able to answer voters' questions or concerns, to be able to de-escalate those situations right on site. And then if needed, then we can call on the sheriff's office to be able to respond.
Thank you.
I have a quick question for you. I'm Sarah from CNN.
Okay, Sarah?
Two things. One, you talked about receiving, Mr. Richard, you talked about receiving additional reports from voters who felt intimidation. Can you give us a sense of how many total there have been?
A handful.
Just a handful. And then, secondly, about poll workers, have you received any concerns from poll workers who are concerned about their safety?
So I think the first question, Recorder Richard, if you didn't hear because you went next to the microphone, a handful of reports of what might be voter intimidation. Certainly that's been passed along. And then the other question was poll workers that feel uncomfortable, feel threatened, anything like that. Do you have anything?
So thanks for the question. It takes 3,000 temporary workers to come alongside our team to run these elections. And so it's so important that these folks feel respected and understand the appreciation that we have. A couple weeks ago at the press conference, we learned that there were folks that were taking pictures of our elections workers at the end of long shifts, coming out to the parking lot or taking pictures of their license plates. At that time, we spoke very strongly to say that's unacceptable. And so we are going to do whatever we need to do in collaboration with the sheriff and other law enforcement to make sure that our election workers feel comfortable. They've got a long days ahead for them, and it could be the eyes of the world on them. But again, for people just like the sheriff was talking about, for people who would come and try and intimidate voters, we feel the same way about them trying to intimidate our elections workers. But I'm encouraged to see that that happened sort of early on in the process. It seemed to have curtailed, and I think the sheriff has been very clear about what people will meet if they want to come down and try and intimidate our workers over the next week.
This question is for Sheriff Penzone, Jason Barry with Arizona's family. I know that you and your staff had some discussions with some assignment editors and other folks early this morning to talk about where the media would be allowed access from the reporter's office on election day. For many, many years, we've always been able to be in the lobby, to have access to visually see people counting, to have access to the county reporter and perhaps Chairman Gates during the process, and it's also been a safer location. Last year there were a number of protesters outside that harassed the media. The indication this morning was that the media was going to be asked to be outside of that building, and it was indicated that it was for the media's safety, and I think I can speak on behalf of many of the reporters and crews who will tell you that it doesn't feel like a safer environment because we're kind of, it's a volatile atmosphere. We are a smart plug for and harass us and increase the temperature of what's going on. So have there been any other discussions this afternoon about possibly allowing the media to be in that lobby during election night, both for our safety and our ability to read what's going on tonight?
Yeah, Jason, I've known you a long time, and I like you, so I'm not going to throw you to the wolves like that and then have to pull you out. So we had a long conversation, so we're working on a plan right now to make sure that we can provide access, but do it in a managed way, because the biggest challenge is your access means dedication of resources to kind of be escorts in that space. But we do recognize that Supervisor Gates and Recorder Richer are very passionate about the fact they want to make sure that you're in an area to cover at. I would only ask this: understand that if we have what we hope that we don't, which is any potential escalation, then it would require tactics and certain strategies in order for us to mitigate that potential threat. And that's when we need you to make professional decisions relative to how you cover things so that it doesn't jeopardize our ability to mitigate those threats. So we will have, post this news conference, we'll speak with you again about how we're going to execute on that, but Fields will take the lead and we'll make sure we take care of you.
Industry standards. Is there something that you can say to why you believe the logic and accuracy tests performed before and after the election is up to standard, and what is, in layman's term, the standard that exists?
So Scott Jarrett will take that question. Can everyone hear everything? I was told that some people in the back can't hear. Could you guys all hear that? So he's asking about logic and accuracy tests and how we know they work, essentially.
So before and after every election, and this is a requirement by state law that we put our certified tabulation equipment through a logic and accuracy test. This logic and accuracy test is performed not only by the elections department, but also an outside entity, an independent entity, the Secretary of State. We run thousands of ballots through our tabulation equipment to verify that they are accurate. And they review everything from not only that they're going to accurately tabulate the ballots, but that we've programmed our accessible voting devices correctly, right, with the right type of language, that the words are correct, that the spelling of the candidates' names are correct, all of those different avenues. And we perform that logic and accuracy test according to federal and state requirements. So we meet those standards as we perform that. Then we also perform a post-logic and accuracy test. So the purpose of that post-logic and accuracy test is to verify that we haven't made any updates or changes to the program between first starting and starting tabulation and then post-election after we've tabulated all those votes. So that's what gives the voters the confidence that those can be reliable. Now, one other point is the political parties play a role in that. So the county chairs, or themselves, or they appoint someone to come in to the tabulation center and also participate and make sure that we're doing our jobs correctly.
This is just a yes or no question to the supervisors and the two election experts. It's no secret
spread misinformation. Have Kerry Lake, Abe Hamadeh, Mark Fincham, Blake Masters, Kelly Ward, or Kimberly Yee in the last 2 years asked any of you for a personal tour to see how the elections process works and personally brought their concerns to you to try to get their questions answered?
What was the list?
I can answer that list. Yeah. I mean,
Hamadeh, Mark
I don't know,
Fincham,
the
Blake
chairman and
Masters,
then
Kelly Ward, or Kimberly Yee?
not one of them.
Not one.
Yeah,
Is
so
the answer?
I would say each of those campaigns has reached out with particular election questions, which we've been more than happy to answer, as we would for any candidate. Some of them have even asked about processes. Mr. Masters, in particular, has asked me quite a few times about different processes. But we did invite everyone to do a tour, all the candidates. We also invited everyone who was in the state legislature. Some of those state legislators availed themselves of that opportunity. Many others didn't, and so that's right now is not a great time to be doing a tour, but we look forward to any who get elected, or really anyone who wants can come do tours again once we've wrapped up this election. And then I just want to beat it over the head just because it keeps coming back regarding the tabulation equipment. In 2020, in the post-election context, the political parties sitting in groups of 3 hand count audited 47,000 plus votes, and then they matched those to the machine count, and that matched 100%. And so this is the same tabulation equipment. So this is the same tabulation equipment that we used in the August primary. And for the August primary, we had the pre-logic and accuracy test, we had the post-logic and accuracy test, we had the political parties do the hand count audit for the primary as well, and we've used this equipment for various jurisdictional elections as well, and it has always worked 100%. Additionally, this has to be federally certified and state certified, and the Federal Elections Assistance Commission really pulls it apart and does a whole bunch of things that I don't even understand before this technology can even go out on the market for states like ours to be able to use it. And then if you don't like all that, well, you're in luck, because the state legislature expanded the recount threshold, so in all likelihood we'll be doing a full recount anyways in December, and so that will give you one more reason to believe that the tabulators read the results correctly. And when we did a recount for a Justice of the Peace contest in August, guess what? We had the exact same results when we recounted it one more time.
I think your answer was no, Joe.
Yeah. And sorry, I stepped away a little quickly. 2 things I want to add. First of all, Kelly Ward was here for the logic and accuracy test in November of 2020. And also, actually, Recorder Richer and I did a tour of MCTEC with Wendy Rogers, and she was very gracious, and I think she got to see all about the operations of the elections process here in Maricopa County.
Yeah. Well, question number 2, all I have to do is look down a little bit. So I used to have more of that. But no, I'm blessed to work with such wonderful professionals. I mean, all 5 of the county supervisors, really every elected official, 2 from here of the countywide team. So we have a wonderful team. We're doing democracy. Never has there been anything so meaningful in my life, and so that's really wonderful. But yeah, we're normal human beings, and when you continue to do this, and it seems like at times that there are people who seriously want us to fail, and sort of what purpose does that serve? And so, I would ask people to think of that. And then another thing we've tried to do is that we've tried to humanize the process. To anyone who comes in and asks about our election, takes a tour. As Scott mentioned, for the 3,000 poll workers who are working our election, these are your neighbors, these are your friends, these are the people your kids go to school with, their parents at least. All that. Regarding how do we know? Because you've probably seen everyone talk about tracking their ballot. We couldn't track their ballot unless we actually had linked to that voter. And so, yes, when you register to vote, you are given a unique identification number. And then when we send out that packet, we can be able to track it all the way through. I mean, we're by no means the only one with this technology. And then the reason why we can tell you when it comes back our way is because that does link to you. And if you really want to test the system, you can, well, don't do this, but if you had to, if you sent back an early mail ballot packet and then you tried to show up, we'd ask you to vote a provisional ballot ballot just because it would have already loaded a vote to your profile. And so really it's an award-winning system that we're proud to have developed here in Maricopa County. It's worked. You've seen lots of people who are tracking your ballots. And so I would say to anyone who has misgivings about this process or ability to track yours, go online to beballotready.vote and look up your own status and look if you've participated in past election results, and you'll see that we'll be able to offer you all that information. Or lastly, I always brag about how quickly we respond to emails. If you have any questions about that or about your voter status or about where your ballot is, then I encourage you to be an active participant in this, because heaven forbid one ballot does get lost in the mail. We would want you to then go into a voting location. So voterinfo@risc.maricopa.gov.
Thank you, Yvonne. Oh, Jason, and then we'll go over to Yvonne.
We have a crew over at a Kerry Lake event right now, and they were implying that you're going to make it tough on them tomorrow by implying that there's going to not be enough ballots, there won't be enough poll workers, there's going to be long lines. Again, talking about ballot shortages, poll worker shortages. It's not necessarily the case. Can you respond to that?
So
Recorder Richard.
we want everyone to be able to have a positive experience. I approached this office, I was excited about this office because I thought it was sort of like the yogurt store that I used to be involved in, where you just want to leave the customers happy. And voter registration, recording documents, and election administration, what's controversial about that? We'll just have a good customer service orientation. And I believe that we have been successful in that. In the August primary, we were amazing about line management. I think the average wait time was less than 2 minutes, and we saw that in the over 43,000 people who responded to our post-election survey. Every single voting location so far in this election period has opened on time. And for those of you who are Cardinals fans, that's what we call a winning streak. And so it might not be something you're familiar with. But so that continues off of the August primary. And so that's something that I'm very proud that the team is doing. Additionally, for our locations page, locations.maricopa.vote, you can now geographically see the different voting locations, and such that you can visualize it and you can click on any. And so we've tried to make it as easy as possible. As Scott mentioned, he gave you the exact percentage increase from 2020. So we're increasing the number of voting locations. That was done at the direction of the Board of Supervisors, and I think that's absolutely right. So we're prepared for larger audiences tomorrow. And regarding ballot paper, I think Scott's killed the forest in the process of doing this. No, but seriously, we're more than ready. We don't print ballots in advance. One of the things that we have been accused of is running out of ballots, which was unfortunately some of our neighbors to the southeast of us. But we don't have stacks of ballots, because you don't show up to a voting location and then it's like, I'm supposed to get that type of ballot. We print all of our ballots on demand, and we have plenty of printer paper that is ready. And again, as Bill mentioned, please check out that website, because there are sometimes locations that are easier to get to. There are times where it's easier to go. 5 to 7 p.m. is going to have more traffic. And so if you want to avoid that, maybe consider going to a different time, or maybe find that voting location that's, a little less trafficked.
Sorry, I just want to follow up on that, underline everything that he said. This is going to be something you're going to be hearing from all of us, is, this is where the lines are. Move to one of the other 222 locations, vote centers. I've talked to a lot of reporters actually from out of town recently who are all surprised that we have that system, and said like, hey, we should have that system where we're from. And my colleague, Supervisor Galvin, who was here earlier, I think he's going to be roving around, and he may be sending out some tweets about where he's seeing shorter lines. So you guys might want to follow Tom Galvin as well on Twitter. He's got some other good stuff on there too. So.
And I think what you got out of all that is we've made voting incredibly easy for anybody who wants to participate in this process. These guys have run a smooth ship all the way through early voting and the early voting locations, whether you choose to go, if you choose to go there in person. So, and one more reminder, it was another county in Arizona that didn't print enough ballots, not us. We have more than 1,000 miles of paper that had been ordered for this, because we print those ballots on demand right there. So you get one of the 10,000 plus ballot styles that we use in Maricopa County that incorporates your school district, your city council members race, whatever it might be, as well as those state races and national races that everyone's watching. Yvonne, I know you had a question back there in the corner. Do you still have a question?
Yeah, thank you.
under what conditions would we consider extending vote times? What would the scenario be that we might do that?
Along lines, something else, there was some sort of indication from last week's press conference that could be something that
Do you want to take that?
Take that one, yeah. I'm happy to take this one because this is something I dealt with back in my days when I was a Republican lawyer. I'm working on election integrity. The only way that this county would extend the voting hours beyond those who arrive at 7 p.m. is from a court order, period.
Okay, go ahead, Vaughn.
covered the county for many years. I've never seen this room packed the way it is right now.
We're so interesting now.
What does this say to you all about how the rest of the country, perhaps the world, views Maricopa County and the state of Arizona in the context of democracy?
Chairman Gates, I know we'll have a few words on this.
Recorder Richard said asked and answered. I have kind of a spiel on this, but I'm happy to do it because I think it's a very important question. That's true. I've not seen this many cameras in here before, and we've had some tough issues that we've dealt with in this room over the past few years, COVID and many others. But I think what this indicates is this really is not about us. This is about what's going on generally. The fact that we have not only reporters here from the U.S. but from around the world, people who have concerns about our democratic republic, about what's happened to elections. And as was mentioned earlier, I'm proud that the world has sort of come here for a variety of reasons, because we have an incredible team of people that run these elections. They're experts, they're award-winning, they're up to the challenge, and they are able to see what we have here, which is a true hybrid voting model. However you want to vote, you can do it here in Maricopa County, whether it's in person on election day, in person early, mailing in like so many people choose, or even drop boxes. And I think it's important for people to see that. But also, I think one of the reasons, arguably, that you all are here is that we've tried to kind of stick to the facts here. We've tried to follow the law. And oddly, that's unusual. That's newsworthy. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's what we were supposed to do. That's what we were taught as kids growing up. But unfortunately, that's not how everyone views it these days. But I know with my 4 colleagues on the Board of Supervisors and all of my countywide electeds, that's what we're committed to. Call us old-fashioned if you want to. But we're going to continue to do that, regardless of the impact that might have, including the impact that it might have on us politically. We don't care. We're doing a job that we're proud to have been elected to, and we're going to continue to do that. But we thank all of you for being here to amplify the truth, and we appreciate, we know you guys could be a lot of other places, and maybe a little bit of it is because our weather is so nice right now.
Just 1 second.
Okay, please.
Yeah, I agree completely with what Supervisor Gates just said, but I would say I have a little bit of a different take, which is this, and that's why I feel so passionate about what not only the sheriff's office, but what the county is doing here regarding this issue. In my opinion, there are 2 institutions in our nation that the entire foundation is predicated on trust. The first one is law enforcement, and we've seen over the past few years when people have a lack of trust in who we are and what we do and how we do our job because they have empowered us, then it devastates the institution and it's no longer effective in trying to ensure that there is order in a free nation. The other institution is our vote. And there are people out there, in the same way that some want you to lose trust in law enforcement, that want you to lose trust in the democratic process in our republic. And Arizona has become the focal point. So this is one of those defining moments that if we fend it off and we show our mettle, and we don't waver to the false allegations and the conspiracy theories and all the dishonesty that goes on, and we don't give in to those who claim to or seek to be leaders, yet they say things that are always divisive and they never bring solutions, they just bring complaints and conspiracy theories. If we don't fight that off now, then our children will suffer because of it. So this is, I know it seems really exaggerated, but this is a defining moment, not just for Arizona, but for our nation, because we are predicated on institutions that are founded in trust, and if you don't trust in them, then they fail.
We've got a question right here.
Hi, Sophie on BBC. I just wondered how concerned the tool
So if a candidate doesn't accept the result? I think,
We've dealt with it before.
yeah, this is not new, right? So yes, we've dealt with that before. If the candidate, the numbers are what the numbers are at the end of the canvass. And so I don't know if Chairman Gates wants to talk about the canvass. That process is going to happen probably by the Monday after Thanksgiving. That's when his board will be assigned to canvass the election. Then it'll go on to the state.
So again, this kind of ties into some of the things I was talking about earlier, right? People have gotten so focused on did the networks call a race for someone or something like that. And that's fine. They can do whatever they want to. And also, what if someone declares victory? If a candidate declares victory before all the votes have been counted or when it's in doubt? And for my colleagues and I, we're the ones who vote to certify this election. So I don't really care what those people choose to do. There's only one vote that really matters on this topic, and it's the vote of this board. And if people think that they're going to intimidate this board when it is time to do the certification, that's not going to happen, because this board went through this in 2020. We had the former president reaching out to us. We had America's mayor reaching out to us, and so many others, leaders in the Arizona Republican Party, trying to get us to do one thing or another. They're not going to intimidate us, okay? We're going to wait for these professionals to do their jobs, go through all the votes, and then if people have questions, they can go to the courts and go through that whole process. But the certification is one that's going to be decided by all of us, and if people don't acknowledge the results, they do it, I think personally, once this has been adjudicated, that is one of the most selfish things that a person could do. Because all of this is bigger than all of us. Every single one of us. And to do that, you're putting your own desires, your own goals ahead of this democratic republic, which has already had its challenges. So I know these people who are running, they've been very successful, they've won their party nomination, but these folks here in Arizona, when it's all said and done, they need to acknowledge the results and either take office or move on with their lives.
I think we have time for one more question if there is one, but I don't see any hands. I made this mistake last week and didn't wrap up. All right. Well, it seems like we're probably ready to wrap. I would remind. I know we have a bunch of crews that aren't. We have our local TV stations and reporters that are out there, but I have no doubt over the next week some of this creative storytelling that we've talked about today. So false narratives, that's going to reach you on Twitter or wherever it reaches you, and you're going to have questions for us, those of us that are in the command center, and we're doing our best to accommodate you over at McTech at the election center and answer your questions as quickly as we can. Please send your emails to the command center. That's the media email that I think you all know at this point. And we've got it published out there. If you have any questions of us before you leave today, please ask. But please send it through that command center so we can go ahead and triage that request as quickly as possible if it involves an interview, a public records request, or you just need information. I saw this said, can you explain this? And we'll do our best to get on that as quickly as possible. We understand that rumors, they travel faster than facts. As I said, we'll try to get the facts to you as quick as we can. Thank you very much for being here. We'll let you know when the next presser is. We will have another one this week. Thank you.